How's it going there, guys? Dave Nader here, and today I have another book review for you. Now today I'm reviewing the 5th book in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This is actually the longest book in the series, like by a very decent margin. It's like 50,000 words longer than Moby Dick, as I recall, so really by any standards, it's a pretty long book. Just felt like pointing that out. Anyways, it starts out with Harry Potter just minding his business at the Dursleys' house, his adopted parents, like his aunt and uncle. And then all of a sudden, him and his cousin get attacked by Dementors, 2 of them, and he barely manages to fight them off. And then he almost gets banned from from Hogwarts because you're not allowed to use magic. But luckily, that gets sorted out in a trial. But anyways, moving on from that, this is of course Harry's 5th year in a row that he's going to be going to Hogwarts, but before he goes there he hides out for a while with the Order of the Phoenix, which is comprised of multiple wizards that do believe in the fact that Lord Voldemort came back, into his physical body. He's back, and he is going to obviously start a new reign of terror. But unfortunately, when Dumbledore, said that to the Minister of Magic, he didn't want to believe it because, he's kind of a coward. Cornelius Fudge being, a little bit prissy there, and he just launches, a whole campaign again about how Dumbledore is just going senile and he doesn't know what he's talking about, and Harry Potter is just some idiot kid who's a liar who really wants to be popular and blah 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 blah. And of course he's wrong, but that causes most of the people in the wizarding world to believe that Harry Potter and Dumbledore and just a lot of people at Hogwarts are just incorrect, and Voldemort isn't really back. And of course that proves to be a bit of a problem. The Order of Phoenix is comprised of wizards who do, no, yeah, he's back. And that includes Sirius Black and Alastor Moody and Kingsley Shacklebolt and other people like that, who are all very cool. And when Harry shows up at Hogwarts, unfortunately, Cornelius Fudge has sent in this lady named Dolores Umbridge, who is the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, the 5th one since Harry's been going to Hogwarts. And she's pretty much the worst one yet. She's useless, and she has a lot more authority than she should, and she's kind of evil. She's a despicable, disgusting human being, and the book goes on from there with Harry just progressively learning just, how Voldemort is going to be affecting him and toying with his mind, and how Voldemort is going to wreak havoc, and they need to stop that. All the while, Harry has to get through school, as per usual. So yeah, again, this is the longest book in the series, and really, despite that, it's the best paced out of all of them. This is a fantastic book. It's, the new heights of character development in this book are just so well done. Harry, it's just so great. He's, of course, as I've said, a flawed protagonist. He has a bit of a temper, and never is that more apparent than in the climax of this book, and I'll get into that later. That was just so well done, what all happened there. Hermione and Ron are great. The banter that they always have between each other is just as well written as ever, and pretty much the best it's ever been written that I've seen from the book so far. This book has fantastic dialogue, J.K. Rowling's signature style of, lightheartedness, backed up at times by, very dark writing, and, there's some very creepy scenes. It's great. She has a great sense of humor, as per usual. Dumbledore, of course, very wise. You don't get to see a whole lot of him in this book at times, and that is explained later on, but you get to see more of Dumbledore in, say, Goblet of Fire than you do in this book, but there's very good reason for that. Sirius Black, however, gets to be in this book a lot more, and I love that. Sirius Black is very cool, very likable character. I love his relationship that he has with Harry. He is his godfather, but at the same time, they're, really good friends. They get along so great. Harry really looks up to him, but at the same time, Sirius kind of looks up to Harry, and it's very cool to see, and he's very protective of Harry. And of course, he reminds him of his old friend, James Potter, Harry's dad. Although possibly to somewhat of a problematic degree, as Hermione mentions, but I won't really get into that. You should just read the book and find out what's going on there. Alastor Moody, of course there was a certain reveal about his character that I suppose I won't give away for Goblet of Fire, but yeah, in this book, he is as good as ever. You know, of course he's gruff, tough, big guy, growls out all his words, as I said in the Goblet of Fire review, but at the same time he has very endearing conversations with Harry. You know, he's a good, caring man, and very, very threatening, you know, so you don't want to get in this guy's bad side. Just all the characters, very well handled. New characters, Luna Lovegood, she was not in the book that much, but you know, she instantly becomes you know, very interesting just because she's very quirky, but then she can see the Thestrals, which are these weird winged, black, emaciated horse creature things that are invisible to someone who's never seen a dead person. Of course, Harry has, namely in the last book in the series, Goblet of Fire. I don't mean Deathly Hallows. And so, you know, you don't hear whoever she saw who's dead, but, you know, obviously because you hear that fact, it's like, oh, so what happened with her? What's going on with her character? That's interesting. So instantly, a layer of mystery adds to her character, and she becomes more and more likable as the book goes on. Just the way she just shows up all of a sudden, just interjects into Harry, Ron, and Hermione's conversations, always provided for good humor. How Hermione is just really just kind of off-put by her because of the fact that her dad owns the newspaper The Quibbler, which is just pure tabloid nonsense, and Hermione's like, oh gosh, it's so idiotic. But, you know, she tries to restrain herself a little bit so that she doesn't offend Luna too much, but other times she kind of loses her temper. You know, very, very good conflict between characters there, just all throughout the book. Ron, he's just really, really funny. All the other characters, Fred and George, you know, I didn't really talk about them too much in Goblet of Fire, but really, I love Fred and George in Order of the Phoenix more than I have in any of the other books. They're really, really funny, very clever and witty. The pranks that they pull off are the best of ever because they want to open a joke shop, and just their fireworks that they set off, and you know, all kinds of tricks that they do with their candy, you know, all great, all funny, great fun addition to the story that takes away, or you know, adds a bit of lightheartedness because again, it's a charming and funny book, as with all the other ones, but you know, this is every bit as dark as the last one, Goblet of Fire, which was the darkest one so far in the series out of the ones that I've read. And so yeah, you know, it's tied for being the darkest. You know, there's some very creepy scenes. You know, there are dream sequences with Harry because there's something going on in his head psychologically. You know, of course he has a connection with Voldemort that's been apparent throughout the series, but that gets delved into more here. And it's very fascinating, and I loved all the stuff in the book that delved into that, especially when you hear, you know, the grown-ups, you know, the older wizards talking about that. Speaking of them, you know, I already mentioned Dumbledore. You know, you don't get to see as much of him, but when you do see him, it's great, you know, especially by the end of the book. Oh man, get into that later. McGonagall, you know, very, very likable character. You know, again, strict but fair, and you know, very, very good-hearted, well-meaning person. Snape, you get to see finally in each book that he's been in. You know, I mean all of them. He's been in all the books, but I always want to see just a little bit more of him. And here, I think you do get to see, you know, just a bit more of him, and I love that. You know, probably attributed to the fact that it's just a longer book all around, so you get to see more of him, and it was really good, and especially a certain scene involving a Pensieve, or the Pensieve that belongs to Dumbledore later on in the book. I'm not going to get into that, but that created a great conflict between Harry and Snape, and you get to see a great bit of backstory, and it really makes you think about, or also makes Harry think about, you know, his parents and the people who he looks up to, but also, you know, makes you think, like, dang, you know, it's interesting, just adds great layers, like, you know, like ogres and onions to the story and to the characters. Again, great banter, great dialogue, great characters, very well-paced book. The action here is very good. In fact, the climax of the book is the best out of the whole series so far that I've read. Which makes sense, because, you know, I recall the climax from Order of the Phoenix being my favorite of those movies back when I watched those years and years ago. And yeah, so stands to reason that would be the case here, and it totally is. It's so exciting, very intense, and again, you know, Harry's always had, you know, he's a good person, but he's a flawed character. He has a bit of a temper. He can let his emotions get the best of him, and he totally does here, and it just ends in such a sad way. You really feel bad for what happens. I suppose I won't actually give it away. But then there's just such a climactic battle. I mean, the entire climax, it's just pages and pages of great excitement. It's really good, really well written. It's exciting as book action sequences really have any right to be, and more. It's just very, very clever. Because I mean, J.K. Rowling, seriously, like, just such a clever writer. That's the best way you can possibly put it. Just how many, she constantly, just like, not just a couple times every so often, like constantly every 2 seconds throws some new element that you never would have even thought of that's being incorporated into the magical world. And she's done that consistently through all of the books. And this is the longest one so far, so you get to see a whole lot more of that, and it's just, and that includes the action. It's exciting and great, but it's just very inventive and well done, all around, intense and dramatic. There's great, powerful moments, very, very powerful moments. And then, of course, the end of the climax involving Voldemort and Dumbledore. I mean, that's kind of a spoiler, but I think we all know about that. I'm going to keep it vague, but that was just great to see. And then, of course, the conversation that Dumbledore and Harry had at the end of the book is very revealing of what had been going on. And it's pretty much the best dialogue from Dumbledore that's been in the series so far. And dialogue's Dumbledore. Dumbledore's dialogue has always been pretty much my favorite dialogue from all the books. So yeah, just fantastically written book. Very exciting. There's not a whole lot of action, but just Dolores Umbridge. I mean, I haven't even talked about her, so now I'm going to talk about her. Oh my gosh, she sucks. You know how I always say, like, oh, Hagrid, he's just the best, and Alastor Moody, he's just the best. Oh my gosh, Umbridge is the worst. She's so horrible and evil, and just everything you could possibly want from a very annoying and just vile and disgusting character in a book, like Grima Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings, kind of like that. Just so disgusting, so well done there, and you just hate her, but you at the same time still acknowledge, like, man, J.K. Rowling could not have written her better, really. Just fantastic antagonist in the book, basically, and it's so satisfying when you see the students actually retaliate against her. And another character who, of course, has been in the books before, but it gets fleshed out a lot more, is Neville. You learn a good bit more about his backstory, really find out more about him, and see that he actually has somewhat of a connection with Harry that, of course, does get expanded on a little bit later in the other books. But I'm not going to get into that now. I've always loved Neville. Everyone loves Neville. Who doesn't love Neville? He's so endearing. He's so likable and a bit of a klutz, but, in a lovable and endearing way. And just very charming and nice, and you really sympathize with him. But in this book, he's not like, just some blibbering little guy who, like, oh, poor Neville, that you feel sorry for. Like, no, in this book, he starts to take initiative. He comes to his own, and again, he's in the book a lot more, especially in the climax. And you start to be like, okay, Neville is actually turning into kind of a force to be reckoned with, but at the same time, he's still as lovable and relatable and sympathetic as he's always been. Fantastic, just great new character development. I love the book all the way through, and I'm glad that it's the longest book in the series, because it's my favorite book in the series that I've read so far, and I enjoyed pretty much every second of it. I really don't have any flaws. Like, this is one of the best children's novels I've ever read in my life. This is a freaking awesome book. Totally check it out if you haven't already. I spoiled a couple things, but I tried to keep it mainly spoiler free. There's just a whole lot here that I didn't even mention, so just check it out for yourself. This book definitely gets an A+. Order of the Phoenix, man, such a good book. I don't see how Half-Blood Prince or Deathly Hallows could step it up from here. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to have fair expectations for those books, but I'm just saying, I don't see how they could possibly step it up from here, because this book is fantastic. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you liked it, please rate and comment and subscribe. And if you want to, you can also share. Goodbye, guys.